Hey, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and welcome to part 2 in my using two colors with the Cricut foil transfer tool tutorial, and we're going to make that card. This video covers the cutting of the greenery with Design Space and the Maker, as well as the card assembly. Part 1 is actually the foiling process, and that is linked in the video description and at the end of the video. For this card, we're going to need some greenery, if you will. So you can see I've already kind of messed with this here, but I'm going to show you from scratch, obviously. So what you would do is in Cricut Design Space is hit New Project. And we're going to upload the design just like we did with the star. So I'm going to go over here and go to Upload Image and Browse. I'm already in the folder because we got the star. But you should just navigate to where you've saved this berries and greenery design from the Silhouette Design Store. Again, linked in the video description and over on my blog. And you can tell which one you need. You need the scalable vector graphic, the SVG. So just look over here and make sure you're getting that one. Cricut will not open the Silhouette Studio document, so just be aware of that. So click on that, hit open. It's going to give you this error message about text elements. Hit continue. I'm not sure what that's referring to because I didn't have any issues opening this or like with the design once you open it. Now you can rename it here whatever you want to. So I'm going to call it foil card. Oops. Apparently I can't spell. Hit save. And then I'm going to click on this over here. You can see I've done this a few times and hit insert images. Okay, so it's going to come in all as one image. And if you see over here on the right, it's all grouped together as one bunch. So we want to separate them out because we're going to cut these separately. So I'm going to just click ungroup up here. And so now each of them becomes its own individual layer, which is good. That's what we want. So I'm going to pull these apart. So the berries are on one layer. The branch, this mistletoe guy is on one. There's a branch, and then there's the pine branch. So we need to resize these for a card. They're a little bit big right now. Not too big, but they're a little big. So I know from experience that I want to change the berries to 1/4 of an inch high. So up here you'll see the size box, and you want to make sure that this lock proportions lock is actually locked. Like if you click on it, it'll unlock, you can kind of tell, and then you would be able to change the height separately from the width. But we want to lock it because when we change the height, we want the width to change proportionally with that. So I'm going to change the height to 0.25. So it's 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to do that for each of them. Don't worry about the width. They will change just basically proportionally with each other. They're not all the same, but they're close. And so that's really all we got to do. And then I'm going to kind of move these close to each other. And then I'm going to click and drag to select all 3 of them. And I'm going to group those together. Now I know for the card I need multiples of each element, so I'm going to duplicate this twice because we need 3 groups. So if you go over here to the right, hit, and there's a duplicate button, you can hit duplicate twice, and you'll see it creates 2 more rows. Now we want to keep these kind of grouped together because ideally we're going to cut this all on one mat and we're going to do it out of scraps. So I want to keep these as close together as possible. So I'm going to just click and arrange them like so, click and drag to select them all, and I'm going to group all of those together. Alright, and down here, the mistletoe, we need to change the width. So again, make sure it's locked. The width on this is going to be 2.3. And then we're going to duplicate this guy twice as well. So just click on it, come over to the right, click the duplicate button twice. Now you have 3 of them. Now, ideally, we want to get this cut on like the skinniest piece of paper we can. So I'm thinking there's a way to arrange these that might save some paper. So I'm going to flip one, go up here to flip, and then I'm going to flip horizontal. And I'm going to take the rotate handle here, as you saw me do a second ago with this guy, and I'm going to rotate this. And then this third one I'm going to rotate as well to try to fit it into kind of a close group. So let's see if I can, I'm going to rotate this a little bit more. Alright, I mean, you can do it however you like, it doesn't really matter. You just want to get it into sort of a close group so that you can use the least amount of paper to cut it out. Alright, and so then I'm going to click and drag to select all those, and then I'm going to group those together. And we're going to do the exact same thing for the branch. Now the branch we need to resize to a little bit bigger, tiny bit bigger, to 1.5 inches wide. And then we're going to duplicate that 3 times, or twice. So do that. And I'm going to move this down here. I'm going to put them in like a little bit of a row. And then group those together. And then our last one is the pine branch. And this one needs to change to 3 inches high. And then this one we actually need 4, so I'm going to duplicate it 3 times. Again, click and drag to select them all. Hit group. All right, so what we got to do is we need to attach these to each other. So I've selected the branches, and I'm going to go down here on the bottom right and hit attach. And same with each group. So I'm going to attach them all together to each other. And that way they're going to stay the way you see them here, rather than getting monkeyed with when you make it. When they put it on a mat, it gets all weird. So now what I'm going to do to avoid having to put them onto one mat from individual mats, because when you hit make it, as you may or may not know, it's going to break it apart by color. I think we've got 2 greens. Maybe this might be a different color than this, and then a red. And so what we're going to do is make them all the same color. So I'm going to make them the darkest color green. All of them. It doesn't matter, because we're not going to cut them out of the darkest color green. We are going to cut them out of different colors, but by making them all the same color on the mat, you fool the machine into thinking you are cutting it all on one mat. So that's why I'm doing that. Now at this point you'd want to hit save, name it something, and then hit save. I'm not going to do that because I've already saved this many times. But after you've saved it, click on the green button up here on the right and hit make it. And so now you can see it says sorting project into mats by color. So here's where we're going to move things around. And this is why you don't want to attach them all to each other, because if you attach them all to each other back on the other, in the design, the canvas, they would come in that shape, and we want to be able to move each of these groups around to arrange them on the mat. So this one comes in as kind of as close to the cut line, which is a little bit hard to see here, but it's a red line. And so I'm going to basically try to get all of these as close to the cut line as I can. Maybe not right up on it, but pretty close. Because what we're going to do is now we're going to use the grid on the mat to figure out how much cardstock do we need of each color. So I'm doing 4 different colors. So that's why I put them each into the 4 corners, so we'll know how to arrange them on the mat before cutting. So super, super easy. So we can tell from the pine branches I need about 5 inches wide and then 6 inches long. So I need 5 by 6 for the branches, pine branches. The little berries we're going to cut out of red, and that's 2 by 2. So super easy. The branches, it looks like I need 2.5 by like 1, 2, 3, 4 by 4. So we'll go 3 by 4 just to make sure I've got enough space. And then the mistletoe, I've got 1, 2, 3 wide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to go 5. So 5 by 3 for the mistletoe. All right, so now we need to go make the mat, put the colored pieces of paper on the mat to match our arrangement here. Okay, so I'm going to arrange the paper, the cardstock on the mat the way we did back on the screen in Design Space. So this is for the pine branches, so it's 5 inches wide by 6 inches long. So that's going to go in my upper left corner. My berries are going to be red. They're 2 by 2. Now you can even tell, like, this piece of cardstock has like the edges cut off it, because this is like a little scrap. And I know that the berries aren't going to get this far over, so it's okay to use this. So I'm going to just pop that into the upper right. But this is a good way to use up your scraps. Then the branches go in the bottom right. So I'm cutting that out of, this is all Gina K cardstock. This is warm cocoa, red velvet, Christmas pine, and then grass green for the mistletoe. Alright, so we've got our colors arranged appropriately, so I can go back over to the studio or Design Space and hit Make It. Okay, we got the mat set up with the appropriate colors of cardstock in the various corners, so I'm going to hit Continue over here. And it's looking for my maker, which I thought was already, there we go. Okay, so my base material is, I'm going to call it heavy cardstock. However, I know from experience that even at heavy cardstock, this isn't going to cut all the way through because it's pretty heavyweight cardstock. So basically I'm going to cut it, I'm going to send it through twice, but I'm going to pick heavy cardstock as my material. So it's asking me to load the fine point blade and load the mat. So let's go look over at the machine. So I've got the fine point blade in, and here's the mat ready to go. And then I'm going to hit the load mat button. Okay, and now it says press go. So I will press the green Cricut button. Okay, I'm going to check it. Yep, looks like it cut, so I'm going to unload the mat. All right, to assemble the card, we're going to need the 2 stars that we made in part 1 of the video tutorial with the foil and the mat. We'll need a piece of craft cardstock cut to 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and then an A2 sized white cardstock card base that's cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. We're going to need a small heart, or the greenery. We've got small heart punch, some foam squares for the star, some liquid adhesive, definitely important. I'm using art glitter glue, one of my favorites, but there are many great ones on the market, and a tape runner comes in handy as well. Now, to add a little detail to the craft mat, I'm going to punch this little heart punch in the corners. Now, to line it up as best I can, I'm sticking the tip of the paper into the punch first, and then kind of eyeballing on either side of the punch to hopefully get it close to the corner. And I did okay, not too bad. And just punching out one in each corner. Now, hearts are kind of a Scandinavian motif, so that's why I use that with this card, because it's looking very Scandinavian. And I'm going to use tape runner on most of this, and then some liquid glue around the hearts, because we do need good adhesion between the hearts and the card base for the outlining we will do at the very end of this assembly. And I'm going to use the tape runner and then liquid adhesive on just the points of the star to make sure I got that well adhered down to the red mat, both of which we created in the part 1 video. Hopefully you've checked that out. If not, it will be linked in the video description and at the end of the video. Now, our greenery needs a little surgery. So we're only going to use the top 2 leaves on one of our mistletoe, and then we can cut the stems completely off the other 2 mistletoe. For our pine branches, we only need the 2 on the top, so we're going to cut the bottom straight branch off completely. You could save that for something else, maybe. And then the last one we're going to cut in half, so we've got 2 separate branches. Now for our berries, we're going to keep one as is, as you see in sort of the upper right there with the 3 berries on it. And then the other 2 we're going to flip to the opposite direction, and then on the side with the 2 branches, on this one we cut off the bottom branch, and on the second one we're going to cut off the top branch. So we've only got 2 branches on each one, but they are a little bit different from each other. And then I'm just going to adhere the berries down to the tips of these. And then our assembly is all ready to go in our greenery, and we're just going to put the card together. Pretty darn easy. For some dimension, I'm going to add foam squares to the back of the star and adhere this into the center of the card base, like so. Then I'm going to stick my pine branches under the star. May need to do a little trimming of the ends, just make sure they fit well. And then those last 2 are going to go on the opposite sides, as you see there, as is. So I did flip them back and forth to give some visual interest. And then I'm going to add glue only to the ends and maybe like here or there in the centers of the branches, but not all over the whole thing, because I don't want the entire branch stuck down to the paper. I want some of those needles to stand out and have a little dimension against the card base. My mistletoe, I'm going to trim off a little bit more of the bottoms on these, and then I'm going to put those in the card as you see here. And again, flipping some opposite of each other just to increase the visual interest so they don't look like they're all the same. Berry branches are going to go on top of the pine branches and some of the mistletoe, as you see here, and I'm just dotting adhesive down to the back of that as well. And for a very, very finishing touch, we're going to do the outlining of the stars. So I've got my 0.4 fine tip Cricut pen in red, and I'm just basically drawing a very thin line on the white card base around the outline where we punched out the hearts. So I'm kind of drawing right up against the craft mat to get that nice little red outline. And I'm going to do that on all 4 corners to complete the card. And there you see the 2 colors of foil, really pretty. And I just was super happy with how it came out. I think it's very pretty and very kind of Scandinavian looking, which is sort of my theme this year. So hopefully you like that style as well. And I wanted to show you, did an opposite version in red, where I basically flipped everything that was white to red and everything that was red to white. Instead of red foil, I used silver foil, as you see there, and that is really pretty. And then I used a white gel pen to outline the red hearts, and I added a tiny bit of Nuvo glitter drops to the white berries on this card. I did not do that on the red berries. So kind of fun. I actually really like both versions. I think they're really pretty. Now, if you wanted to assembly line this, I have a couple suggestions. But first, let me show you the difference between the fine point and the bold point. So you can see on both of these extra stars, I did nothing but the fine point on the foil. And while it is pretty, it's not nearly as good looking as the bold point on the words, like the word joy and the hearts. Same with the red. It's pretty, but not nearly as good looking. So I think that bold point is pretty important, and it also makes it visually interesting. Now, if you wanted to assembly line these, red foil doesn't come in big 12x12 sheets. So what you could do instead is use the red marker for the red portions, and then use the gold foil in the 12x12 sheets to print out multiple stars at once. And then if you want to do the red version, you can use the 12x12 sheets of gold and silver to do multiples at once. So that would be kind of fun. I hope I have inspired you and helped you learn how to use your Cricut foil transfer tool. Thanks so much for watching. Supplies are linked in the video description and over on my blog. If you missed part 1 of the video, here's a link to it, and I'd appreciate a thumbs up if you liked the video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that yet, and please leave me a comment because I love getting comments, and it also helps my channel quite a bit. Thanks so much. Happy holidays!